Chapter 16, Digestion and Absorption. Food is one of the basic requirements of all living organisms. The major components of our food are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Vitamins and minerals are also required in small quantities. Food provides energy and organic materials for growth and repair of tissues. The water we take in play an important role in metabolic process and also prevents dehydration of the body. Biomacromolecules in food cannot be utilized by our body in their original form. They have to be broken down and converted into simple substances in the digestive system. This process of conversion of complex food substances to simple absorbable form is called digestion and is carried out by our digestive system by mechanical and biochemical methods. General organization of the human digestive system is shown in figure 16.1. 16.1 Digestive system. The human digestive system consists of the alimentary canal and the associated glands. 16.1.1 Alimentary canal. The alimentary canal begins with an anterior opening, the mouth, and it opens out posteriorly through the anus. The mouth leads to the buccal cavity or oral cavity. The oral cavity has a number of teeth and a muscular tongue. Each tooth is embedded in a socket of jawbone. This type of attachment is called thecodont. Majority of mammals, including human beings, form two sets of teeth during their life. A set of temporary milk or deciduous teeth replaced by a set of permanent or adult teeth. This type of dentation is called diphyodont. An adult human has 32 permanent teeth which are of four different types, that is heterodont dentation, namely incisor, canine, premolars and molars. Arrangement of teeth in each half of the upper and lower jaw in the order ICPMM is represented by a dental formula which in a human is 2123/2123. The hard chewing surface of the teeth made up of enamel helps in the mastication of food. The tongue is a freely movable muscular organ attached to the floor of the oral cavity by the frenulum. The upper surface of the tongue has a small projection called papillae, some of which bear taste bud. The oral cavity leads into a short pharynx which serves as a common passage for food and air. The esophagus and the trachea, that is windpipe, open into the pharynx. A cartilaginous flap called epiglottis prevents the entry of food into the glottis. Opening of the windpipe during swallowing. The esophagus is a thin long tube which extends posteriorly passing through the neck, thorax and diaphragm and leads to a J-shaped bag-like structure called stomach. A muscular sphincter, that is gastroesophageal, regulates the opening of esophagus into the stomach. The stomach, located in the upper left portion of the abdominal cavity, has three major parts: a cardiac portion into which the esophagus opens, a fundic region and a pyloric portion which opens into the first part of small intestine. Small intestine is distinguishable into three regions: a C-shaped duodenum, a long coiled middle portion jejunum, and a highly coiled ileum. The opening of the stomach into the duodenum is guarded by the pyloric sphincter. Ileum open into the large intestine. It consists of cecum, colon, and rectum. Cecum is a small blind sac which hosts some symbiotic microorganisms. A narrow finger-like tubular projection, the vermiform appendix, which is a vestigial organ, arises from the cecum. The cecum opens into the colon. The colon is divided into three parts: an ascending, a transverse, and a descending part. The descending part opens into the rectum, which opens out through the anus. The wall of alimentary canal from esophagus to rectum possesses four layers, namely serosa, muscularis, submucosa, and mucosa. Serosa is the outermost layer and is made up of a thin mesothelium, that is epithelium of visceral organs, with some connective tissues. Muscularis is formed by smooth muscles usually arranged into an inner circular and outer longitudinal layer. An oblique muscle layer may be present in some region. The submucosal layer is formed of loose connective tissue containing nerves, blood, and lymph vessels. In duodenum, glands are also present in submucosa. The innermost layer lining the lumen of the alimentary canal is the mucosa. This layer forms irregular folds that is rugae in the stomach and small finger-like folding called villi in the small intestine. The cell lining the villi produce numerous microscopic projections called microvilli, giving a brush border appearance. These modifications increase the surface area enormously. Villi are supplied with a network of capillaries and a large lymph vessels called the lacteal. Mucosal epithelium has goblet cells which secrete mucus that help in lubrication. Mucosa also form gland in the stomach, that is gastric glands, and crypt in between the bases of villi in the intestine, that is crypt of Leverkusen. All the four layers show modification in different part of the alimentary canal. 16.1.2 Digestive gland. The digestive glands associated with the alimentary canal include the salivary glands, the liver, and the pancreas. Saliva is mainly produced by three pair of salivary glands: the parotids, cheeks, the submaxillary and submandibular lower jaw, and the sublingual below the tongue. These glands, situated just outside the buccal cavity, secrete salivary juice into the buccal cavity. Liver is the largest gland of the body, weight about 1.2 to 1.5 kg an adult human. It is situated in the abdominal cavity just below the diaphragm and has two lobes. The hepatic lobes are the structural and functional unit of liver, containing hepatic cell arranged in the form of cord. Each lobe is covered by a thin connective tissue sheath called a Glison's capsule. The bile secreted by the hepatic cell passes through the hepatic duct and is stored and concentrated in a thin muscular sac called the gallbladder. The duct of gallbladder, that is cystic duct, along with the hepatic duct from the liver, forms the common bile duct. The bile duct and the pancreatic duct open together into the duodenum as the common hepatopancreatic duct, which is guarded by a sphincter called the sphincter of Oddi. The pancreas is a compound, both exocrine and endocrine elongated organ, situated between the limbs of the U-shaped duodenum. The exocrine portion secretes an alkaline pancreatic juice containing enzymes, and the endocrine portion secretes hormones, insulin, and glucagon. 16.2 Digestion of food. The process of digestion is accomplished by mechanical and chemical process. The buccal cavity performs two major functions: mastication of food and facilitation of swallowing. The teeth and the tongue, with the help of saliva, masticate and mix up the food thoroughly. Mucus in saliva helps in lubricating and adhering the masticated food particle into a bolus. The bolus is then conveyed into the pharynx and then into the esophagus by swallowing or deglutition. The bolus further passes down through the esophagus by successive wave of muscular contraction called peristalsis. The gastroesophageal sphincter controls the passage of food into the stomach. The saliva secreted into the oral cavity contain electrolytes: sodium ion, potassium ion, chloride ion, and bicarbonate ion, and enzymes: salivary amylase and lysozyme. The chemical process of digestion is initiated in the oral cavity by the hydraulic action of the carbohydrate splitting enzyme. The salivary amylase, about 30% of starch, is hydrolyzed here by this enzyme, optimum pH 6.8, into a disaccharide, maltose. Lysozyme present in saliva act as an antibacterial agent that prevents infections. Starch convert into maltose in the presence of salivary amylase at pH 6.8. The mucosa of stomach has gastric glands. Gastric glands have three major parts of cell, namely: first, mucous neck cell which secrete mucus. Second, peptic or cheap cell which secrete the proenzyme pepsinogen. And third, parietal or oxyntic cell which secrete HCl and intrinsic factor. That is factor essential for absorption of vitamin B12. The stomach stores the food for 4 to 5 hours. The food mixes thoroughly with the acidic gastric juice of the stomach by the churning movements of its muscular wall and is called the chyme. The proenzyme pepsinogen on exposure to hyaluronic acid get converted into the active enzyme pepsin. The proteolytic enzyme of the stomach, pepsin, converts proteins into proteases and peptones, that is peptides. The mucus and bicarbonates present in the gastric juice play an important role in lubrication and protection of the mucosal epithelium from excoriation by the highly concentrated hyaluronic acid. HCl provides the acidic pH, that is 1.8, optimal for pepsins. Renin is a proteolytic enzyme found in gastric juice of infant which help in the digestion of milk proteins. A small amount of lipases are also secreted by gastric glands. Various types of movement are generated by the muscularis layer of the small intestine. These movements help in a thorough mix-up of the food with various secretion in the intestine and thereby facilitate digestion. The bile, pancreatic juice, and the intestinal juice are the secretions released into the small intestine. Pancreatic juice and bile are released through the hepatopancreatic duct. The pancreatic juice contains inactive enzyme trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase, amylase, lipases, and nucleases. Trypsinogen is activated by an enzyme enterokinase, secreted by the intestinal mucosa into active trypsin, which in turn activates the other enzyme in the pancreatic juice. The bile released into the duodenum contains bile pigment, that is bilirubin and biliverdin. Bile salts, cholesterol, and phospholipids, but no enzymes. Bile helps in emasculation of fat, that is breaking down the fats into very small micelles. Bile also activates lipases. The intestinal mucosal epithelium has goblet cell which secrete mucus. The secretion of the brush border cell of the mucosa along with the secretion of the goblet cell constitute the intestinal juice or succus entericus. This juice contains a variety of enzymes like disaccharidase, example maltase, dipeptidases, lipases, nucleosidases, etc. The mucus along with the bicarbonates from the pancreas protect the intestinal mucosa from acid as well as provide an alkaline medium. pH 7.8 for enzymatic activity. Submucosal gland, that is Brunner's gland, also help in this. Proteins, proteases, and peptones, that is partially hydrolyzed proteins, in the chyme reaching the intestine are acted upon by the proteolytic enzyme of pancreatic juice as given below. Proteins, peptones, proteases converted into dipeptidase in the presence of trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase. Carbohydrate in the chyme are hydrolyzed by pancreatic amylase into disaccharidase. Polysaccharidase, that is starch, is converted into disaccharidase in the presence of amylase enzyme. Fat are broken down by lipases with the help of bile into di and monoglycerides. Fats convert into dipeptidase in the presence of lipases and further convert monoglycerides. Nucleases in the pancreatic juice act on nucleic acid to form nucleotide and nucleosidase. Nucleic acids converted into nucleotidase in the presence of nucleases and further converted into nucleosidase. The enzymes in the succus entericus act on the end product of the above reaction to form the respectively simple absorbable forms. These final steps in digestion occur very close to the mucosal epithelial cell of the intestine. Dipeptidase convert into amino acid in the presence of dipeptidase. Maltose convert into glucose plus glucose in the presence of maltase. Lactose convert into glucose plus galactose in the presence of lactase. Sucrose convert into glucose plus fructose in the presence of sucrase. Nucleotidase convert into nucleosides in the presence of nucleotidase enzyme. Nucleosidase convert into sugar plus base in the presence of nucleosidase enzyme. Di and monoglyceride converted into fatty acid plus glycerol in the presence of lipases. The breakdown of biomacromolecules mentioned above occur in the duodenum region of the small intestine. The simple substances thus formed are absorbed in the jejunum and ileum region of the small intestine. The undigested and unabsorbed substances are passed on the large intestine. No significant digestive activity occur in the large intestine. The function of large intestine are: first, absorption of some water, minerals and certain drugs. Second, secretion of mucus which help in adhering the waste, that is undigested particle, together and lubricating it for an easy passage. The undigested unabsorbed substance called fecus enters into the cecum of the large intestine through ileocecal valve, which prevents the backflow of the fecal matter. It is temporarily stored in the rectum till defecation. The activities of the gastrointestinal tract are under neural and hormonal control for proper coordination of different parts. The sight, smell, and or the presence of food in the oral cavity can stimulate the secretion of saliva. Gastric and intestinal secretion are also similarly stimulated by neural signals. The muscular activity of different part of the alimentary canal can also be moderated by neural mechanism, both local and through CNS. Hormonal control of the secretion of digestive juice is carried out by local hormones produced by the gastric and intestinal mucosa. 16.3 Absorption of digested product. Absorption is the process by which the end product of digestion passes through the intestinal mucosa into the blood or lymph. It is carried out by the passive, active or facilitated transport mechanism. A small amount of monosaccharides like glucose, amino acid and some electrolyte like chloride ion are generally absorbed by simple diffusion. The passage of these substances into the blood depends upon the concentration gradients. However, some substances like glucose and amino acid are absorbed with the help of carrier proteins. This mechanism is called the facilitated transport. Transport of water depends upon the osmotic gradient. Active transport occurs against the concentration gradient and hence requires energy. Various nutrients like amino acid, monosaccharides like glucose, electrolyte like sodium ion are absorbed into the blood by this mechanism. Fatty acid and glycerol, being insoluble, cannot be absorbed into the blood. They are first incorporated into a small droplet called micelles, which move into the intestinal mucosa. They are reformed into very small protein coated fat globules called the chylomicrons, which are transported into the lymph vessel, that is lacteal, in the villi. These lymph vessels ultimately release the absorbed substance into the blood stream. Absorption of substance takes place in different parts of the alimentary canal like mouth, stomach, small intestine and large intestine. However, maximum absorption occurs in the small intestine. A summary of absorption, site of absorption and substance absorbed is given in table 16.1. Table 16.1. Mouth. Certain drugs coming in contact with the mucosa of mouth and lower side of the tongue are absorbed into the blood capillaries lining them. Stomach. Absorption of water, simple sugar and alcohol etc. take place. Small intestine. Principal organ for absorption of nutrition. The digestion is completed here and the final product of digestion such as glucose, fructose, fatty acid, glycerol and amino acid are absorbed through the mucosa into the blood stream and lymph. Large intestine. Absorption of water, some mineral and drug take place. The absorbed substance finally reaches the tissue which utilize them for their activities. This process is called assimilation. The digestive waste solidified into coherent fecus in the rectum, initiated a neural reflex causing as urge or desire for the removal. The ejection of fecus to the outside through the anal opening. Defecation is a voluntary process and is carried out by a mass peristalsis movement. Disorders of digestive system. The inflammation of the intestinal tract is the most common ailment due to bacterial or oral infections. The infections are also caused by the peristalsis of the intestine like caused by parasite of the intestine like tapeworm, roundworm, threadworm, hookworm, pinworm, etc. Jaundice. The liver is affected, skin and eyes turn yellow due to the deposition of bile pigments. Vomiting. It is the ejection of stomach content through the mouth. This reflex action is controlled by vomiting center in the medulla. A feeling of nausea precedes vomiting. Diarrhea. The abnormal frequency of bowel movement and increased liquidity of the fecal discharge is known as diarrhea. It reduces the absorption of food. Constipation. In constipation, the fecus are retained within the rectum as the bowel movement occur irregularly. Indigestion. In this condition, the food is not properly digested, leading to a feeling of fullness. The cause of indigestion are indique, enzyme secretion, anxiety, food poisoning, overeating, and spicy food. Thank you, students.